If you are into movie and movie-related discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here today with...
Zero.
Zero, how you doing this week?
Thankfully over the stress of the work project that happened last week, but definitely still recovering from it.
Right. As people know right now, Zero is in a government assignment where he is dealing with top-grade weapons. He can't go into the specifics, but we do value his service for this country. So, congratulations, Zero. I'm proud of you. We are here today to review the 1992 action drama Hard Boiled, starring Chow Yun-fat, directed by John Woo. You know, I had a bunch of things I wanted to talk about before the review. A lot about John Woo, which I know that you're familiar with. Chow Yun-fat, of course. But the one thing that stuck out to me watching this movie was this. How many goddamn movies is Tony Leung in that are hallmarks of Asian cinema? Like, what the hell? I turned on the movie and it's like, Chow Yun-fat, Tony Leung. I'm like, he's in this too? What is this? Don't get me wrong. The more and more I see him, I love him as an actor. He's become one of my favorite actors. But god damn, is this guy in every single great Asian movie? Is that what's going on here, Zero? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it almost seems like if it's like a really, really beloved movie from the Hong Kong cinema space, he's probably in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I watch Seven Samurai, and all of a sudden Tony Leung is in there somewhere because he traveled in time to be in the Akira Kurosawa film, I'd be, one, a little disturbed, and two, I would be like, you know, I guess even Kurosawa knew, I guess. I don't know. But, shit, man. I didn't even know he was in this movie. That's why it surprised me, because I kept hearing, oh, Chow Yun-fat's great in this. Chow Yun-fat's awesome in this. I did not hear anything about Tony Leung at all in this movie. And, man, he is young in this. Holy shit.
Yes, he is.
He's damn, if I went that way, he's fucking handsome. Shit, man.
Yeah, he had not become grizzled just yet.
Yeah, and even when he's, grizzled, he's kind of handsome, too. So it's so unfair when certain people are just attractive no matter what age. It fucking sucks. God. Okay, so let's get past it before I get really bitter into the review of Hard Boiled, starring Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung, directed by John Woo. Okay, so we're going to do light spoilers on this review, so keep that in mind. If you want to skip over to the final thoughts, go right ahead, or come back when you're ready. So this movie reminded me of when we reviewed The Raid Redemption last year. And the one reason why it reminded me is because the film does one thing so well that it kind of drowns out the rest that's not done very well. And that's the action. The action in this movie is excellent. But it's different in the action that is also in Raid Redemption, where the Raid Redemption is more grizzled hand-to-hand combat and it's more brutal, whereas this one's more stylized gunplay. And I like both very much. But they're two different types of action that you can get into. But I definitely like what this movie did when it came to those action sequences.
Oh, yeah. I mean, John Woo's hallmark back in the day was just always gunplay. Just, if you saw his name attached to something from the Hong Kong cinema space, just the one thing you could just predictably walk into is knowing that you were probably going to be in for some intense, gunfights with just insane explosions and just completely wild action. And by God, this movie delivers it in the spades.
oh my God, this is some of the best action I've ever seen in a movie. It is astounding what they do in this movie. And yes, it's stylized, so to a certain extent, some of it's unbelievable. But you don't really care because it's so fun and it's so intense when you're watching it. Watch this throughout the film, and you know me, Zero. You know me fairly well. I'm kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to certain types of films and what they do. So when they start diving in the air and they're flying all over not literally flying all over the place, but when they're airborne throughout most of the film in their action sequences, a part of me wants to be like, yeah, okay, that's not very believable. But the style of the film when it comes to the action sequences are so well done that I just don't care. It is so fun, and the action sequences are so well done. Even when I have a few issues, I still marvel at the technical aspect of how they did all this. It is exceptional, the action in this movie.
It's funny because, of course, John Woo is also kind of noted for like the style of the Hong Kong action cinema gunplay stuff, that you can see some of the inspiration from some other later movies that would kind of adopt some of the styles of stuff. John Woo, I think one of the biggest ones would be The Matrix, because you see like a couple of the bullet dives where you just got a guy just airborne, two guns in his hands, just blasting like a madman, and you're just like,
Yeah.
Yep, this is the origin story of some of the stylized action that you would see in movies like The Matrix, and even to like a more modern sense, even movies like the John Wick movies as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. John Wick owes a lot to what movies that John Woo did, like Hard Boiled. Even if you want to mention like Face Off or Broken Arrow. Like, these movies, if it weren't for those movies being successful and being as good as they are, I would debate on Broken Arrow. With those being so successful, you wouldn't have. John Wick isn't exactly what John Woo does either in his films. John Wick does a lot of very rapid and fast gunplay, whereas John Woo's stuff, as I've seen in this movie, it's more about choreography in a dance kind of way, whereas in John Wick it's more of, we need to get these sequences done as fast as humanly possible. Both are great, but I definitely like what he did in Hard Boiled in this movie, because not only is the gunplay really well, but the sense of space in these action sequences are also incredibly well done. Whereas in I think action movies now, with some exceptions of course, but with action movies now, the sense of space isn't as important. It's all about what's in the frame. It's all about this person does this in frame, boom, 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 does it really fast, does it really brutally. It's something that The Raid has that kind of thing with it too. I can't get enough of the action in this movie. Like, the action is just really well done. Like, not only like entertaining, but well choreographed, just a lot of fun to watch in its intensity and in the way it's shot. Like, it is really well done on this.
The choreography is, once again, just definitely the centerpiece of the show, especially for the action sequences. Especially because to a casual viewer, they might not be able to see it or appreciate it, but in the cacophony of chaos, there's definitely a sense of coordination behind it. And again, with John Woo films, you expect this. And again, it's just nothing but exemplary work from John Woo here. So, as usual, I think that's really the main spectacle you come to Hard Boiled for.
So, let me ask you something. Have you seen the other John Woo movies like Broken Arrow and Face Off?
Seen Face Off, never saw Broken Arrow.
Okay, so I'm asking this for a reason. I remember seeing Face Off in theaters because the big thing is that it was a John Woo movie, and you had to watch it because John Woo is an amazing director, and if only you saw Hard Boiled, you would understand that. When I look back at Face Off, as much as I think Face Off is a good time, Face Off doesn't even compare to Hard Boiled in terms of the action and in terms of the overall fun you would have with it. Like, Face Off is fun in different reasons. And Face Off is fun because of the ridiculousness of the concept and to see John Travolta and Nicolas Cage overact like fucking crazy. That's what makes Face Off fun. The action's good, but the main thing is to see those two actors just chew scenery. But in this movie, in Hard Boiled, the action takes center stage and is for the better when it's that way. Because I look at John Woo, and whenever I look at all the films that he's done, that I have seen, I should say, characterization and plot ain't his strong suit. It really is not. And that also turns out this way too in this movie. The weakest part of this movie, I think, is the dialogue and some of the plot. This is a 2-hour movie, a little over 2 hours.
Yeah.
This could have been cut a little bit. Like, this could have been about an hour and 45, but just fine. But with that being said, like, the film is mostly action. And there are some fun parts that are part of the plot, but it's the action that stands out in this, and it's the action that works. Whereas in Face Off, specifically, it takes a lot to get the plot going because of the concept of the movie. And it's weaker because of that.
Oh, it's definitely a little bit thin.
But for the better, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going into Hard Boiled expecting like a noir deep story, that sort of movie, this ain't it.
Like an Infernal Affairs. Like, don't even.
Yeah. Don't expect Infernal Affairs from this because you're not going to get that.
No, I would definitely agree with that. The plot's thin, but even with the little plot that there is, it's just not that interesting to me. I wouldn't mind it being cut, the plot being cut a little bit to just speed the movie up. Because when you get into the final sequence of the movie, and let me just spoil it right out. The final sequence of the movie is about 45 minutes long. And then when I watched the movie, and I didn't realize that until I watched it was like, oh my God, there's like an hour left. And like, oh my God, is this the final part of the movie? Is this? Like, holy shit, this is great. And if I would have known that at first, I would like, that could spell disaster. But it works. It works so well. Really works that the last part of the movie, like the third act, is set in the hospital. And that's where all the craziest stuff in the movie happens. And let me tell you something. I've never said, holy shit, so much from an action movie than this movie. That hospital sequence took like 3 or 4 of it, like, for me. I was like, oh my God. What? Like, holy shit. Like, I was saying that constantly. It was insane how much I was loving the action in this movie. And I'm not a big action fan. And I was really invested and interested in this movie. Like, I know we're talking about the writing and everything, but the action just flows and fits so well in all this. Like, even like the lesser scenes, quote unquote, lesser scenes of action, I think is well above other action movies. Like the tea house scene, for example, great scene, but then it's taken over, or I would say it's usurped by the scene in the warehouse, which is then usurped by the hospital scene. And I can't get it over how hard that is. It is really hard to up the ante more and more and more without it falling apart. And it doesn't in this movie. And it just iteratively builds, and that's the best part. And I mean, it's like you said, you know, sometimes some movies will talk a big game going, oh man, the action doesn't ever stop, and then it's like after maybe one of the best action scenes, you're just like, ooh, yeah, this other action scene that came after the big one, it's not so great. And this one, yeah, it starts off with the tea house, and you're just like, holy shit, this is insane. Yeah. And then the warehouse, and you're just like, oh my God, it gets even better? And then the hospital, and you're just like, oh my God, this is mind-blowing. Oh my, dude, I can't get over how great the hospital sequence is. And that's a sequence where one bad thing could make the whole entire sequence fall apart. And it just works. It works in such a degree that I think it lifted the entire movie up. Another movie this is reminding me of, you didn't see it, it's called Warrior. And Warrior is literally, the first hour of the film is the drama and the plot. The second half of the film it's about MMA fighters. It's about the MMA fighting tournament. Literally, that's all it is. And the issue with Warrior I had was the drama was okay, but then once you got into the MMA stuff, it was good up to a certain point, and then it fell apart at the end. If this sequence did not work to perfection, this would have made the movie fall apart. I just can't get over how great the sequence is. Now I understand why people praise this movie and call it one of the best action movies of all time, because that whole sequence in the hospital is excellent. It is really good. Really good. I can't get over it. Why didn't you convince me to do this earlier? I'm blaming you.
This movie is definitely one that's definitely in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And again, I'm not a big action fan. I prefer drama. I prefer romance. I prefer something with a little more depth to it. But even I was just like, damn, this is really good. And the action actually helps the movie go along. It's not just like, here's a crazy action sequence, then shitty plot. And then, here's another one, and shitty plot. The plot's good. It could be a lot better, but the action is where it's at. It is so damn good. Oh my God. Like, it is incredible. Like, I'm fanboying out here. It's not even funny. Let's get into some particulars. Performances, I think the only two we can talk about is Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung. Tony Leung was okay in this. Like, I thought he was fine. He wasn't, like, great. He played the role fine. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it was an amazing... No, it was fine. It was fine. It was solid, I would say, in this movie.
Tony Leung, he kind of played like sort of the asocial gangster / assassin, and it was kind of an interesting sort of role to put him in, especially because he usually plays the good cop role, the cop that follows the rules and that sort of thing. So to kind of see him in sort of like this asocial assassin type, you're just like, that's kind of weird. They completely flipped him into like kind of a villain role here.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of an interesting juxtaposition when I saw the movie many years ago. And it's still a little bit of a juxtaposition even today.
Yeah. I mean, he's not bad, but he's not what I would expect from him, knowing his later work. So I guess that might be my issue with it a little bit. It's not that I have an issue, but it's like, it's not as good as his later work. So I don't see the actor that blossomed into what he was in The Mood for Love, or even in Chungking Express, even though I did not like the movie. That's kind of the thing with me on that movie. But what I will say is I'm surprised by how good Chow Yun-fat is. And the reason why I'm saying I'm surprised is because my only exposure to Chow Yun-fat is American cinema and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And Crouching Tiger, he's good. But Michelle Yeoh and Zhang Ziyi are the two best performances in that movie. Whereas in this movie, I don't think I've ever seen Chow Yun-fat in a performance that is actually charismatic. In the movies I've seen him in, I thought he was kind of like the standard straight man. He's very stoic, the hard rock that the other characters rely on. But in this movie, he's strangely charismatic in like a weird way, and it kind of works in this. Like, I was surprised by this performance.
Chow Yun-fat in this one was kind of interesting because a lot of his roles in the Asian cinema space are kind of interesting, because in the Hong Kong cinema space, for a little while, he had a reputation for what some of the Hong Kong movie fans would say. He had the reputation of a babyface killer, that he looks super young, super youthful, kind of has a babyish looking face, but he ends up being put into roles that are like very tough, very aloof, or very, very cold even. So to see him kind of having a little bit more fun, especially like the beginning sequence where you see him just playing a jazz clarinet and just like hammering down drinks and stuff like that, you're just like, whoa, what the shit? And his performance was just fun here. I think mostly just more important pieces are just the action sequences, where just crazy shootout sort of stuff. You've got like the tactics that he uses where they're completely unorthodox, and the best way I can describe it is, for anyone who watches a whole bunch of Simpsons stuff, it's like McBain, where like he gets yelled at the police chief for like blowing up something, and then just McBain's like, well, why the fuck do you care? I got the job done, didn't I?
Good pull for Simpsons. I approve of any Simpsons references on this podcast. But like I said, like, it's a good performance, but I was just kind of stunned he was this arrogant SOB in this movie. Like, I thought that was like, I didn't see that coming. Like, that's weird. But then again, I'm not familiar with his oeuvre in Hong Kong. Since you mentioned the action sequences with John Woo and how he gets to do those, let's get into direction. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the action sequences, even though they're obviously choreographed, they obviously are, they don't feel choreographed in this movie. And I think that is a testament to his direction, because the film, when the action sequence comes up, it still feels chaotic. Like anything could fucking happen. And crazy things are about to happen, and I don't know what. A lot of action nowadays, and even back then too, you could choreograph, like, quick. Like, that's, oh, this is obviously going to happen. Oh, and this is going to happen. But it depends on the director or the person doing the stunts to be like, well, we have to do it in this different way. In this film, it's, especially in the hospital sequence, I did not know what was going to happen next. And I loved the fact that I did not know what was going to happen next. And it's because the way that John Woo directed this film made it feel maybe off kilter, or not uncomfortable, but in a way where, again, like, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what was going to happen in the next sequence, or what the direction of the movie is going to go in. And I think that is just a testament of how great of a director he was in this movie. It's just really well done. Again, can't get over how good the action sequences are in this movie, and the fact that they fit so well. Here's my thing, okay? Whenever I have to say the action movies are fantastic, it just feels like I'm excusing the film for being bad because the action sequences are good. And I don't feel this way. I think the film is still very good, despite having some problems that I have with it. I still think it's great. It's a good movie, but it's great because of the action sequences. And I think that's a testament to how good John Woo did as a director in this movie.
My thoughts sort of mirror yours. I mean, most John Woo movies, you come in for the action. Just you're not really looking for something that's got like a deep and riveting story that, you know, just really gets the gears in your head turning and everything. And this movie sort of follows that trend. I mean, you've got like a main general plot of like, hey, you've got crime syndicates that are wanting to just take over, and there's like a power struggle and stuff like that. And I mean, it's standard fare for like a Hong Kong style crime movie involving triads and stuff like that. So, I mean, nothing to write home about on that end. But right. My God, just when the action starts going, my God, does it get going.
And I think that what really surprises me in this film is that the action propels the movie forward, whereas the action in most action films is just something that it's like you take your vegetables to get your dessert, essentially, is what I feel is what most action films are. You deal with the shitty plot and characters to get to the good action. And it's not what happens in this movie, despite, again, me having a couple of issues. I think that the action just propels the movie forward to a different level that I think action movies to this day still have not reached.
Do you have one small thing to add? So, apparently, Tony Leung's character was supposedly inspired by Alain Delon's character in the French crime movie Le Samouraï, apparently.
God. Really?
So, yeah, that was kind of something that I thought was interesting when I was doing some supplemental research. I was like, interesting.
So let's get into writing. Okay, so this is where I have an issue with the movie. And it's mainly to do with the dialogue. There are certain parts in the movie where the dialogue is just bad, laughably bad. With Chow Yun-fat's character, or is it Inspector Tequila, when he starts yelling at his boss and he starts getting angry, the dialogue is hilariously bad. Like, it's just like, I don't know anybody who would say that, but okay, pal. Sure there. And like I said before, the plot kind of drags at certain points, but once you get to the hospital sequence, you kind of fucking forget about it. I guess that's the one knock I'd have with the film, is that the dialogue can be pretty bad at certain spots. What about you?
As far as the writing goes, especially since I still remember a lot of my Cantonese and everything, just the dialogue for some of the like office politics stuff was kind of like boilerplate crime story sort of dialogue. Sure. It wasn't super interesting. It was just like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's a crime movie, so yeah, whatever. Other than that, just when you get to some of the action scenes where, you know, you've got the standoffs and stuff like that, I mean, the writing's there, pretty standard, bog standard stuff. But yeah, just the writing is definitely not anything that's mentally riveting or anything like that.
I wouldn't have minded if it wasn't mentally riveting, or if it wasn't like verbose, or it's like Shakespeare. I would have been just fine with that boilerplate stuff, and it's, for the most part, it is there. But like I say, when it's sequences where Chow Yun-fat's character gets angry, or when Alan, which is Tony Leung's character, is talking to his boss, I was sitting there going, ugh, is this like a bad... Like, here's what I thought. I thought it was a bad translation. I thought it was just like, ugh. It's like, what? That can't be right. That's kind of where I was feeling when I was watching it. But if you're saying like this is all boilerplate stuff that you can see in most of these cop shows and cop movies, then I'll take your word for it. But I just sat there going, oh, that's kind of a downer. The romance between Chow Yun-fat's character and Teresa Ma, I thought was actually kind of bad too. I thought that was like, ugh. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like the on again, off again couple sort of romance dynamic, and I was like, I really don't care for it.
Yeah. But for the most part, I think you said it best. It's passable. It's boilerplate stuff, but it's decent enough to where it propels the movie forward. So if you're into that type of thing, you're fine. But what carries the film is the action. So really, the dialogue doesn't mean as much, I guess. If I wanted to be fair, like I would say, does the dialogue really matter? Not really. Like, it's not cheesy in the action sequences, which is great, is what I would say to it. Would you agree?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so let's get into final thoughts for our review of Hard Boiled. I guess I'll go first. I went into this expecting a great movie, which is usually the worst thing to do with me when it comes to watching a movie. Because if I'm expecting it, then I'm expecting it to be almost flawless, and also to basically hit those expectations I have. And you know, Zero, from video games, the more hype there is, more harder it is for it to reach those expectations. And I'm looking at 20 years of being hyped for this movie and wanting to see it, and have been told how amazing this is, and you have to watch it, and never been able to until this very day. And I am stunned by the fact that it met my expectations. The action in this movie is excellent. I cannot understate how great the action is in this movie. It is on another level. The performances by Chow Yun-fat is good. Tony Leung is fine. I think the direction of the action sequences are excellent. The writing could have been a lot better, but it really doesn't hurt the film all that much. Like The Raid Redemption, it does one thing exceptionally well, and I can comfortably say that it's probably one of the best action movies I have ever seen. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. That's one more than I gave The Raid Redemption. If you are an action film fan, you owe it to yourself to spend $2 to rent it on Amazon Prime and watch this movie. I don't even want to hear that you don't want to watch a movie with subtitles. Bear with it. Watch this movie. It is amazing. 4 stars for me. I might even say this. You want me to piss some people off? You ready?
Oh, by all means, do so.
You ready? Okay. Better than Die Hard.
Oh, those are spicy fighting words.
Better than Die Hard. I think it is. I think it is better than Die Hard. 4 stars for me for Hard Boiled.
I am probably going to say I'll probably be right at about the 85% mark.
Okay.
So a little bit higher than your score, but I think mostly it's just because of the action sequences. The action sequences, they just iteratively get better. It isn't kind of like a, okay, first action scene, that was pretty good. Second, holy shit, this was awesome. Third one, wow, that was disappointing. Instead, it's just like, all right, first action scene, damn, that's good. Second one, oh my god, it gets more insane. And then the third one, you're just like, what the fuck is even happening? This is awesome.
Yeah.
The only parts I have to dock points on are really just the dialogue. The dialogue is just kind of bog standard crime drama movie sort of stuff. Just nothing super interesting, nothing that's like mentally intense like Infernal Affairs or anything. But if you're going into this movie hoping for an Infernal Affairs, then you're watching the wrong movie. If you're really big into just Asian choreography in just action movies, this has to be like one of the prerequisite movies to watch, because this kind of built the foundation for a lot of the Asian action crime movies where they've got like intense gunfights and things like that. And I would even venture to say it has influenced a lot of Western cinema's fascination with like gunfight choreography as well too. So if you're an action movie fan, you really should see this one if you haven't done so already.
Yeah. Can I save myself a little bit of heartache or some problems right now? I want to say right off the bat that I think Die Hard has better dialogue. So if you want to give me that argument, fine, go right ahead. But when it comes to the action, this movie is tops. This is the best that I think I will ever have seen. And that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot. But this is just for action movies. I know somebody's going to say, well, actually, I think that Saving Private Ryan has better action. That's a war movie. Shut up. Shut up. But I will say, comparing to action movies, I think this is the best one. Period. End of statement. I want to own this movie, and hopefully Criterion Collection gets it again to re-release, because that's the version I want. And I'm not paying $100 for the DVD. That's fucking nuts. So I cannot wait. I am so glad we got to watch this movie, man. Oh, man. So happy. Was this the first time you've seen this, or is this like the...
This is either the 5th or 6th time I've seen it, and it's always a treat for me.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. 4 stars for me on Hard Boiled, 85% for you. One up me a little bit there, Zero. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. I like it, though. I like it.